What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another exciting episode of FORNEVERNEWS! The only news source that provides anything and everything anime and manga related. And we don't bore you. We get into it. Let's do it.
No matter how you move, get it done. No matter how you move, get it done. No matter how you move, get it done. No matter how you move, get it done.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode. In case you don't know, 65% of people watching right now, they're not subscribed, and it definitely helps the show immensely if you would hit that subscribe button, hit that bell for notifications, all of that good stuff. It just genuinely does great for the channel and will allow the show to continue on with new viewers and all that good stuff, and keep growing. So definitely please hit those buttons, and anything else you want to do, like all that good stuff, I'd appreciate it. Let's get into the show. And the first story is a pretty strong one that I'm sure a lot of people are going to be like, What's going on? What the heck? Because there's apparently a massive delay for Attack on Titan's anime that probably is going to make a few people be like, What are we doing here? Because according to this anyway, it says here, Attack on Titan episode 87 delayed by 1 week. It will now air on April 3rd instead of March 27th due to a special programming. Episode 84 will also be delayed by 10 minutes on NHK Broadcasting. And I believe as it stands right now, as of the recording of this video, there are 82 episodes out for Attack on Titan. So the 10-minute delay will be, which is a really weird delay. Maybe there's something going on like for I don't know, Olympic sports or something there for them to, even though we just had Olympics. So I'm not sure, but maybe it's something there regarding the 10-minute, because who thinks, yeah, we're going to be delayed by 10 minutes in 2 weeks. So that's either maybe a big commercial or something. But then also this whole thing about being delayed by 1 week, it's more important than you realize. Well, for starters, I'm sure a lot of people are like, well, goddamn, so we're going to be delayed by a week. Episode 87 is going to be delayed. What's going on here? That's definitely going to piss you off. But then on top of the fact that it makes me wonder what's going on, because in case you missed it, you may want to go back and watch one of the previous episodes of FORNEVERNEWS where I spoke about that they had a big panel that they were doing, and if I'm not mistaken, I believe it was on March 27th for Attack on Titan. It was supposed to be a big final panel and all of this good stuff. However, if the finale, which was conveniently lined up for the day of that panel, is now getting pushed back to April 3rd, for starters, are they going to push that panel back to April 3rd? Are they planning something? Is the programming that's going to be in place of that episode of Attack on Titan episode 87, is that programming going to be something related to Attack on Titan? A big announcement? Was this planned all along and they're just like trolling us essentially, and maybe that's why they're not going to have nothing on that day, because it's going to be a big announcement, and the following week, who knows, it's going to be a made-for-TV movie or something. That would be silly. Made-for-TV movie, no, put that shit in theaters, get your money. But Attack on Titan episode 87 delayed by 1 week. Again, that's a little bit of a ways off, because right now, as of the recording of this video, we haven't even reached episode 83 yet. We're only on 82, so we're about a month away from that episode airing, or well, when it would have aired, because again, there's a big delay. And yeah, I mean, I'm not the most freaked out about it. I think it's kind of interesting that it's ending. The anime is ending almost a year to the day of when the manga's final chapter wrapped up. It was sometime around this year, if I'm not mistaken, that the manga ended off. So yeah, I mean, I'm not the biggest angry in the world. I'm just curious as to how that's going to align with all the plans that I'm sure they had, including that big panel that they were going to do for the finale, if it's not lined up properly. And again, I'm sure some people are going to be upset, like, yo, I can't miss out on episodes. But you got to think, you got to be a little bit more courteous, you got to have a little bit more grace for these people, considering all that they're up against. We just talked about the other day, Eren Yeager, the voice actor, losing his voice. We talked about one of the animators on Attack on Titan not coming home for 3 days, and they're still, this could also possibly be due to, them falling behind schedule. And that's because their schedule to begin with was ridiculous, because Studio Wit, what took them years to make each season, Studio Mappa is doing in like a fraction of the time. So yeah, there's going to be delays, there's going to be all sorts of stuff. We're going to have a lot of messed up things happening. So ultimately, give them a little bit of grace. Don't meet this announcement with anger or anything like that. If anything, meet it with encouragement for the voice actors, for the writers, for the animators, for the directors, for everybody involved. Give them, a little bit of encouragement, so to speak. As the Japanese would say, Ganbatte kudasai! Do your best! Because, yeah, this has been a tall order for these people, and I don't need to keep regurgitating each and every episode of how ridiculous the anime industry is and how much work the staff over at Studio Mappa have cut out for them. But yeah, Attack on Titan episode 87 delayed by 1 week. Again, this was supposed to air March 27th. It will now finish. The Attack on Titan anime will end 2 days after April Fool's, and then Isayama's gonna pop up on April Fool's. April Fool's is not ending. We got a whole other shit planned for you guys. Get ready, folks. Moving on is a topic of conversation that I've seen even amongst people that I know. I've seen in some of the fandoms. I've seen just in general a little bit of discourse in the One Piece community towards One Piece itself. I think one of the biggest factors that is making a lot of these complaints that honestly have started to come out of nowhere ultimately is stemming from essentially, I think, the fatigue people are having. I think we've been in Wano for a little bit too long. I think certain aspects of Wano has pissed people off, and even though I ain't gonna lie, when it comes to One Piece, it's a different breed at this point. For me, I'm along for the ride. If there's downs, I'm gonna call it out. If there's ups, I'm gonna call it out. But ultimately, I'm just enjoying it. There's no like, oh god, that's it, I'm dropping it. Unless, I don't know, tomorrow Luffy became a one-armed dwarf and said, nah, fuck One Piece, dog. I'm just gonna chill on my boat and eat cereal and drink booze. I would be like, I would be devastated. I'd be like, Oda, did you fucking hit your head? Like, what's going on here? So unless we went that silly or ridiculous with the story, I think I'm on board. And even I'd still be on board if Luffy became a one-armed dwarf too. It's just a screw One Piece, I want cereal and booze, that I'd be, again, just devastated. However, the fandom in Japan is starting to squeak a different tune, so to speak, when it comes to One Piece in general. I think a lot of the breaks is starting to get to people. There's a lot here, courtesy of Kotaku. This article, it's kind of interesting. Let's take a read. One Piece manga's hiatus leads fans to complaints in Japan. Now, mind you, it's been, I can't even call it now, it's been several years now at the very least, that One Piece now usually takes about one break every so often. It doesn't pass a month and a half where One Piece is getting a break. So One Piece gets very frequent breaks. It seems as though Jump is trying to give that luxury to some of the other authors in the magazine as well. My Hero, Jujutsu Kaisen, because dudes will break down. We've seen what happened notoriously to Yoshihiro Togashi from Hunter x Hunter. But it says here, One Piece began publication in 97 and has now surpassed 1,000 chapters. There is a lot for fans to celebrate, but according to website Maijitsu, some manga readers in Japan are not happy about how things are going. Maijitsu reports that a segment of fans in Japan are not only annoyed by the pacing of the current Wano Country arc, which began in 2018. God damn, we're 4 years into this. But also by the manga going on hiatus. That last complaint is rather silly, if not selfish. But to be honest, considering how hard manga creator Eiichiro Oda has worked and for how long, the guy is in a machine. He needs time to recharge and do things like sleep. 1,000,000,000% I agree with the author of this article, but let's continue. Below, via Maijitsu, are some recent complaints from Japanese One Piece readers. So right now, we're about to get an exclusive here, people, of the thought process of Japanese One Piece fans and how they're feeling about Wano and about One Piece these days. It says here, for starters, the first one was, One Piece going on hiatus is no good. So people are upset about the hiatus. They want Oda to drive himself into the ground. Understood. One Piece, as of late, has been going on hiatus a bunch. Plus, the story development has been sloppy. It's definitely been going on hiatus a bunch, and the story hasn't been the most, I guess, solid in every aspect as it's been in maybe past arcs. I'd give it that. The most recent Shonen Jump was pretty interesting, but One Piece, you're taking too much time off. Remember that the Japanese, they also frown on stuff like that. They're very hard workers. They really love to get their shit done. They make sure it's a part of their culture to work and get shit done. So for them, Oda, you're taking how many breaks? They don't care. Their work obsession is very different. One Piece going on too many breaks. It's like every other freaking week. I added the freaking, but yeah, again, it seems a lot of people are, the last one says, don't take the week off because the story isn't going well. Holy shit. They basically say, yo, your shit is trash. Stop. Wow. As noted on Maijitsu, the problem could be with the pacing of the Wano Country arc, which is said to be dragging on and losing the interest of fans. This, in turn, impacts the anime, and it becomes harder to win over new readers. Absolutely. And I'm not gonna lie, just reading some of that shit made my brain hurt, because bottom line, that has to be younger kids or people that don't understand the process of creating manga. The fact that Eiichiro Oda works 21 hours in a day. Like, no, absolutely, you guys are all wrong. He needs his breaks, period. And I'm going to stand on that. I don't care. Like, that right there is selfish, childish, and lacking of an understanding. Like, what do they think that, like, Oda, he takes like 3 hours out of the week and writes One Piece? This is a ongoing process, day in and day out. Oda has been on record saying to any staff member that is joining up to create his masterpiece, One Piece, you got to be willing to die for it. You got to be willing to die for it. So if this man is willing to die for his comic, how dare you say that he's taking too many breaks? How dare you criticize him in that fashion when it's just unjust? Criticism? Absolutely. Maybe you are a little bit frustrated. Maybe One Piece is taking too many breaks, but it's necessary for the grand scheme of things. You want your ending? You want them to get to Laugh Tale? You want Luffy to become Pirate King and get One Piece? Give him his breaks. Now, the story of Wano itself, that's a different tale. Criticism, feel free. There are a lot of things that you can nitpick, and there's a lot of things that you could look through and say, well, this didn't add up. Okay, maybe the fights, maybe the fake outs is pissing you off. So absolutely. But in terms of the hiatuses and the breaks, knock it off. Knock it off. Eiichiro Oda is a human freaking being, and he deserves breaks. He's been doing this since 97. Knock it off. I'm sorry I had to get stern like that, but it's just a reality, and I don't like fans having that type of mindset when people are breaking their bodies, their mind, body, and soul for your entertainment. Be a little bit more reasonable. Be a little bit more gracious with how you treat creators in the future. Okay, so I just wanted to touch up on this one very brief. I don't want to stay on this one too long because I don't want to give the attention, I guess, this one is obviously seeming to look for. Now, in case you don't know, a few years back, around 2018, 2019, probably beginning of 2019, end of 2018, there was a big scandal where the longtime voice of Broly from Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball Super, he also played Ed Elric in Full Metal Alchemist. Dude has been a part of a lot of stuff. Vic Mignogna, he's been a part of a lot of things in anime. Well, around early 2019, a lot of allegations came out against him, and unfortunately he was fired from the role of Broly. He's fired from working for Funimation. He hasn't been able to really go to convention. All sorts of really wild stuff has happened to this guy Vic Mignogna, and there was a whole legal case. They went to court. I believe he lost the first time, and then the pandemic hit, so he hasn't gone to court again because he filed paperwork to be able to get back in the courtroom and try again, but it hasn't happened yet, and ultimately it was a very big deal. Like, I covered it over here, got me into problems, all sorts of stuff. However, two of the people that was a part of that whole case and essentially making Vic Mignogna, ultimately taking him to where he's at right now, that you really don't even hear of Vic Mignogna at this particular point, but ultimately, I believe they go by Monica Real. She plays a lot of voices for a lot of anime, you know, in dub, and Jamie Markey. They're apparently launching a podcast about Vic Mignogna's defamation case. So is this like a one-off thing? Like, okay, I could imagine, right? Take my bias, if I even have any at this particular point, aside from this, right? Take my bias out of this. I'm going to speak strictly as if I am just giving some business advice, some marketing advice, some long-term goals, right? How do you plan on making a podcast? Because a podcast is usually that is going to be like episodes and things like that, week in, week out, or whether it's a monthly podcast or whatnot. How are you going to make an ongoing airing podcast about a case that, you know what I'm saying, it happened, it erupted and whatnot? I could see a long episode. I could see even a 2 to 3 hour crazy episode of talking about everything that happened in the case. But what are you going to do? Let's just say if it's weekly, because ideally podcasts are usually like one episode a week. If they do it monthly, I don't know, but usually it's a weekly process, right? So are you going to go week 1, episode 1, we met Vic. Week 2, episode 2. We went to a convention back in 04 with Vic. Like, how is that going to work? Are you going to just base the whole model of this podcast on a man that has been destroyed? I keep it a buck with you. It sounds like a bad idea. It sounds like you should just leave that alone. If it was something like you're going to sell the rights to your story, your involvement in one of the biggest anime voice acting scandals in recent times, you're going to make like a little mini documentary or film, I'd see that being more feasible. I'd see maybe her support or their supporters coming out and saying, oh yeah, we're going to watch this. But a podcast based on Vic Mignogna, I mean, maybe if that's like the pilot episode, hey, let's get all the cobwebs out now. We're going to talk about this and then we're going to move forward. And then in every episode following, we're going to talk about, hey, so the business of voice acting. Hey, so going to anime conventions. Hey, so this, that, and the third. But if the whole podcast is about, hey, listen, how we destroyed a man and hit him with all sorts of accusations and shit like that. And no. And I want to stay far away from this story just because there's so much toxicity surrounding every which way. But I will say that in terms of ideas, that's a stinker. Like, make a podcast about voice acting. A lot of people aspire and would love to know the ins and outs, or maybe certain directors, and, you know, have them on as guests and what their thoughts were when they had you, you know, they were directing you in this role. Those are some good ideas. Talking about a case about a man that was accused of sexual crimes and all sorts of stuff like that doesn't sound like the greatest podcast. I mean, then again, what do I know, right? You know, I've never made a successful show in my life. I've never had over almost 500 million views in my life, right? But yeah, that's the case with what's going on over there. I will give you guys an update whenever there's any updates regarding the second trial or whatever is going to happen in the future, if it does, regarding the Vic Mignogna case. But as it stands right now, apparently 2 of the people that were involved in it are doing a podcast about it. Next up, it's a smaller story, but I did want to cover it because I am a massive, massive, massive fan of Magi, the Labyrinth of Magic. I've told this story many times. I named my daughter after one of the main female characters of Magi, Morgiana. Like, I love Magi, so I naturally really enjoyed the author Shinobu Otaka. I used to go and translate her website because she had like a blog where she would update and give insight. I used to go and translate her blog so that I could know what the hell she's planning on her next show. I was really deep on Magi. I'll never forget, I made like a 30-minute video talking about 4 fucking pages of dialogue. Like, that's how deep it goes with me with Magi. So naturally, when it was like, oh, she started a new series, Orient, and then, you know, you follow all the news and it's like, oh, they put it in Besatsu. Now that Attack on Titan's over, they're gonna probably push a lot of muscle behind it. Oh, it got an anime coming out. Go watch my first impression video of Orient if you want to know what I think about it. In a nutshell, disappointing as hell. Very disappointing as an adaptation. Source material wise might be a different story. And in case anybody's feeling like, yo, FORNEVER's talking air out of his ass, like, no, I tried. I'm still trying with Orient, okay? I got the first 3 volumes of the manga, so I'm not just like here bashing Shinobu Otaka's new. No, it's just genuinely facts. Like, it really wasn't all that good. However, the latest volume, which I got the first 3, I think over here in the States we might have 6 or 7, and over there in Japan right now they just dropped volume 14. Mind you, they have an anime currently on air. There's like, what, 6-7 episodes or something like that of Orient. And in its first week after having an anime on air, Volume 14 of Orient did 23,611 copies. While that's not terrible, and in the United States that's actually very successful, in Japan, for an anime on air, similar to, I throw the argument maybe even, no, it's definitely way worse with Orient, similar to like Eden Zero, because Eden Zero, I want to say, has around those type of sales, and it has a successful anime on Netflix. That's the difference between Orient and Eden Zero, that as an anime, Eden Zero is on Netflix, and people really are rocking with it, and it has a cult following, got a video game coming out. I'm not seeing almost no love for Orient, and then on top of that, the manga isn't selling great. On top of that, the anime isn't great. It's just like, wow, I ain't even gonna lie, I'm almost to the point where I'm gonna keep following, right? I'm begrudgingly watching the anime. There's a few episodes that I'm starting to get a little warmed up to when it comes to the anime and whatnot, but still, it feels like almost, maybe I should just check out until Shinobu Otaka's next work. Because just because I'm a fan of her work and I'm a fan of her art, that doesn't mean that I gotta stick around while the castle is on fire or some shit like that. And that's the way I kind of feel about Orient. I'm kind of sort of quasi enjoying it to a weird way, but I'm supposed to be like, either I like it or I don't, Not that I almost feel like I'm pushing myself, like, man, you gotta like it as Shinobu Otaka, and that's not the way. And especially if the sales are 23,000, you got an anime on TV right now. Like, these shits should have at the very least gone to 50, 75, 100. That means it's a failure, in my opinion. Like, again, there's a difference. Eden Zero got a lot of money behind it. Netflix, video game, all sorts of stuff. This don't got shit, okay? So, we'll see what happens. I'm not here to bash Orient. I love Shinobu Otaka. I love Magi. It just looks like Orient is dead in the water. And no matter what they've done, putting it in Besatsu Shonen, giving it an anime, all of this stuff, it's not really doing anything. But we'll wait and see. Maybe in another volume or two, there'll be a big episode. The episode 19 effect, like what happened with Demon Slayer, will happen with Orient, and it'll take... That's probably not going to happen. Moving forward, I got 3 different series I want to take a look at their sales. So I'm going to do it in one big one right here. We're going to go back to back. We got 3 pretty notable series. I guess for starters, let's take a look at World of Turiga, World Trigger by Yellowstone over on Twitter. Shoutouts to them. For starters, he said, it stayed pretty consistent between volumes 12 and 22. Then the anime returned and boosted sales. We'll have to wait to see if the sales can continue to rise following the recent airing of the anime's 3rd season. And this is why World Trigger sticks around, despite the fact that in the West, at the very least, World Trigger isn't the biggest Goliath. People aren't really all that into it. You see, Volume 1, for whatever reason, has no data. Was that pre? Or maybe? I don't know. Volume 1, there's no data. But you go Volume 2, Volume 3. Every freaking volume has sold more than the last. Literally, the only dips were between 16 and 18. And then and it dropped from 21. But then it went right back. And Volume 24, the latest volume as of this chart, is the biggest selling volume. Like, yeah, World Trigger ain't ending anytime soon. By the grace of God, this series has been able to obtain a cult following because the author has had some serious health issues. He broke his wrist back in, like, I don't know, a few years back. And ever since then, it's been reoccurring health issues. So the fact that he's doing this, that's a blessing to that man. Shoutouts to the author of World Trigger, because without those fans, this shit would have been long gone and his career would have been donezo. But yeah, like, even with the latest volume, it's still at peak position. Let's move over to D. Gray Man, another series that has suffered from an author's health issues. Not the usual chart because there is only data on the second half. Thanks to print data, we can have an idea of the huge success that it was from the start. Impressive how it maintained itself over so many years despite having so many hiatuses. And yeah, as you can see with D. Gray Man, very, very wild, but still very good. Like, look at those sales early on. Volume 3 jumping into over 600,000. Like, this was insane for this, and this is talking about the second half. But you can definitely see, I mean, first of all, it's been announced that it was headed towards its climax, and you can see with like the latest volume 27, it is headed towards infancy. I always say that, and we're going to keep that as a staple here whenever we talk about sales. When it heads towards infancy in terms of sales, and what I mean by that is like the earlier volume sales numbers and whatnot, when it heads that direction, it means it's about to end. D. Gray Man, they announced climax. Look at sales over the years. It's headed towards how it started, so they're going to probably end it. I don't know how regular the releases have been as of late, but next 2 to 3 years I could imagine, and that's because, again, D. Gray Man doesn't really release frequently at all. But yeah, it's still fascinating with D. Gray Man. And then lastly, I've been holding on to this one for a little bit. Shoutouts to Yellowstone again. Record of Ragnarok, aka Shumatsu no Valkyrie, for 12 volumes, and it's just been astronomical. It's been astronomical. Let's see, did the anime do? The anime was announced on 9, anime came out on 11, and sales dropped by 12. Oh no! The Record of Ragnarok manga sales kind of took a little bit of a hit from the anime. The anime ain't do shit. Whatever. I still had a fun time with the anime. And yeah, you can see the manga sales straight off of quality. Straight off people loving those epic battles with these godlike creatures. Shoutouts to Record of Ragnarok. Dope sales chart as well. Just up and away. And then the anime came and got in the way. Okay, people. And last story of this episode. I've been avoiding the last year or two, I think, of really trying to cover this on FORNEVERNEWS because I just think it's so shitty. And why? But apparently, according to this, it says no anime films were nominated for the Oscars, but Japanese film Drive My Car received multiple nominations. So the only thing coming out of Japan that got nominations is, I'm guessing, a live action film called Drive My Car, because no anime films were nominated for Oscars. And I believe they did the same thing last year, and their reasoning behind not having Demon Slayer Mugen Train was is what was it? Oh, that it's attached to a series and you need to have seen the series. They don't do that. They only do that for singular films that they nominate for the Oscar. It's really stupid, and there's plenty of anime. Like, anime's tearing up the charts, but you know how they go. They throw up a bunch of roadblocks. Like, oh, you're not going to get these Oscars because Oscars mean more prestige, means more money, means they can run the bag up more. Like, yo, Toonami already can't afford Demon Slayer Season 2 because Mugen Train did so well, and that's without the Oscar. Can you imagine what type of price they would have been asking for if they got the Oscar? Yeah, so the Oscars ain't playing fair. Similar to, like, come on, we go through this all the time, like with hip-hop with the Grammys. We just now had one of the biggest hip-hop sessions ever for the freaking Super Bowl with Dr. Dre and Eminem and fucking 50 Cent and Kendrick and all that shit. So we still got a ways to go, and these companies are still going to play hardball, so to speak, in terms of getting where we're trying to go. But yeah, no anime were nominated for the Oscars, despite that. Last few years have just been insane for anime films. I don't get it, man. I don't want to say fuck the Oscars, but yeah, it's kind of on that vibe, lad. Like, what? And I believe those were the 94th Oscars too. So yeah, maybe we'll get them next year. Tiger, huh? Maybe Jujutsu Kaisen 0 will really crush. Oh wait, because it's, well, Jujutsu Kaisen 0 is a technical one that they could actually roll with and get at the Oscar, because technically, even in Japan, Jujutsu Kaisen 0 is technically not Jujutsu Kaisen. It's the Tokyo Metropolitan some bullshit. It has a different name. So technically, they would really be robbing Jujutsu Kaisen 0 if they say that, because it's also a prequel. So it's not even, you don't need to watch or nothing. It's just called Jujutsu Kaisen 0 for marketing purposes. Technically, it's Tokyo whatever the fuck. But we gotta wait and see. And yeah, people, that's all the stories we have for today's episode. Curious what you guys think. Most important story, favorite story, all of that good stuff in this episode of FORNEVER News. That's all I have for this one, though. Thanks for watching. I'm ForneverWorld, and as always, people, have an awesome day. And remember the golden rule: anime and manga for life, babe. Have an awesome day. Peace, and you guys just watched another episode of FORNEVER News. Have an awesome day. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell, baby. Let's go, FORNEVER News. I'd be way too geeked about this. Have an awesome one. You